All right.
All right. Mr. Rodriguez, you have the floor.
Sounds good. So I try to put this talk together for not only like if you're like a new rep and you're really trying to build your business from scratch, but also like if you're a veteran and you already have like a pretty stellar schedule. So today I'm just going to basically talk about how to find events, how to qualify the event, which is really the most important part because finding the event is pretty easy. And then what questions to ask the promoter to make sure that you're actually going to a good event. We obviously have to do this at a higher level just because some of the shows that we do are $4,000, $5,000, $6,000, and we have to make sure that we're not wasting our time. And we got pretty good at that. So yeah, the most important thing to find events is make it part of your daily routine. So there was a time where like I literally couldn't get past 150 or $200,000. And I was like, what do I need to do? And there's a couple things you can do. You can either do demos, more service calls, or you can, stick events and then have a yearly plan. Every year, you're going to sell X amount no matter what. But times that you can plug this into your schedule is while you're sitting on the couch, while you're on the treadmill watching TV, or we've all been at a slow show that we're just like, damn it, I wish there was more people to talk to. And I would literally spend that time and start researching shows. The times that I did it, I spent about an hour a day researching shows, and I would just make a list of them. And if anybody would go through my browser, there's always at least 20 events on my browser that I've been like sitting down and I just kind of get sidetracked. And it's just a normal thing I do now, just because like I either have an event that weekend or I want to better my events. So the research, like I said, researching shows is the easy part. Qualifying is the skill level part. Now, why it's really important to do this, you all know Sean Henry. So Sean Henry had came back to the business a couple years ago. Sean Henry started, again, as a traditional events member, where obviously you have to go through the pecking order. You kind of get the shifts that are not the key events, I guess, and you get stuck with those. But Sean built his business back up in about 2 or 3 years, from basically doing 100,000 to now he's doing about 400,000 plus. And he can tell you that he's just done the same thing that I've done, and just research as many shows as you possibly can to fill them in your schedule. So the first step is you want to find an open weekend that you need to fill. Obviously, summer is one of the hardest times to do this, but last summer I was able to find a ton of events that turned my summer that's going to turn my summer this year into a way bigger summer. So the first step is find an open weekend that you need to fill. Second step is just Google major events in that weekend in a particular city that you want to work in. For example, if there's a high income area, let's say the Woodlands, then you can look up shows just in the Woodlands. I like to find a lot of shows in rural areas, because rural areas, everybody hunts, fishes, and barbecues, and they all need knives. So in my area, there's a place called Uvalde, and I always constantly look for shows in Uvalde or Floresville, like these little areas, and I'll go do a $50 show that brings out the entire city, and you can sell anywhere from $2,000 to $5,000. Like it's really nice, and it fills up all those gaps in your schedules. Once you start obviously getting into them, then you can remarket to them and get better results. The third step is Google a particular type of festival or activity that is popular. For example, obviously rodeo. All the rodeos in your area, I'm 100% sure are not, you guys aren't in yet. Same thing with Lone Star, by the way. Like, I find so many events that I'm like, oh, there's like 9 rodeos that we're not working. That's weird. We should be working it. And I think at this point is some of it's like a staffing issue. We don't have enough people for those little rodeos. But those little rodeos are big. I mean, you guys do the little Robstown rodeo and do like $8,000 at it in a couple of days, and it doesn't cost anything. So it's the same thing. The word festival, obviously, home show, it's very obvious. The one I really like that I found that is really popular is a type of food. So like this next weekend, we have like Donut Fest. There's like 15, 20,000 people wanting to go eat these donuts. And I know that, I'm not a donut booth, but it would be a show that I would try to get into, or Taco Fest. For example, I researched some stuff last night just to kind of look in y'all's area, and I looked at crawfish festivals. Right now, there are so many crawfish festivals going on all over Texas. Like there's one every single weekend, and I found a bunch. I even found a website that is like for all the Texas crawfish festivals, and those you can do as a team anywhere from like 3,000 to about 10,000. Just depends on how busy it is and what the demographics are. I also researched barbecue fest just because this is another activity that draws like a huge crowd. And like I found a major barbecue event in Texas that it's like its 7th annual. It's actually in Humboldt, Texas. So you can also go back and research the Facebook to see on how many possible attendees are actually going to be there, because nobody else reads the newspaper now. So check Facebook. Another event I found for like a good example, what I found last summer. Everybody likes barbacoa, so I actually found a barbacoa fest. The show was $250. It was on a Sunday. It brought in about 5,000 people, and I did about $6,000 at it. And now that's like one of my staples for this summer, which I'm trying to turn it into a 10K show. So those are just like a couple different type of examples that you can kind of look for in your area. And sometimes the better shows are in certain cities with a highly targeted fun experience. I think I had found that Buter Wiener Dog show a while back, but people spend a ton of money on their wiener dogs for some reason. And you can find different shows in areas. I know you guys do like a dog show too, but if you find a dog show in one area, chances are there's 5 others in certain areas. And Houston is such a big territory that you're more likely to find it. But like I said earlier, I like picking rural areas too because it's typically cheap and people actually like our product a ton. Now, there's a million websites that you can kind of look for these type of shows. Websites, if you don't have them already, festival.net. That one has like every major, most of the events, and they sometimes say the number of attendees and the number of booth spaces. Another one, if you're not in all the market days in your area, it's called market-days.com. That's another one. Another one is traveltexas.com. It will tell you all the major events in Texas going on. I even Googled in Houston. I just put major event going on in Houston, April 12th to 14th, and all these things will pop up. So it's not really that hard because you don't want to show up and know that your summer is only based on the shows that you're going to be handed, not the shows that you've actually gone out and done the research for and truly build a business within your schedule. So some of the other examples of events are like, obviously, livestock shows, crawfish festivals, market days. We do a tamale fest. I'm sure there's a tamale fest in Houston somewhere. I'm sure there's a million taco truck fests out there, burger bash, balloon festivals. They have balloon festivals everywhere. One of my biggest balloon festivals that I did was we did like $12,000 at it. It was a first-time event, and I think it brought in like 50,000 people. It was the first time they've ever hosted. It was crazy. But once you find an event with similar type of people that attend, you can find a ton of them across Texas with a similar type of demographics. But the most important thing to take away from this talk is that you need to make sure that you're putting in the time to actually reap the benefits. Like literally put it in your schedule if you're not going to make it a habit to constantly research the events. The second part of this is I'm going to talk about how to qualify a show. Now, once you found the event and you feel like it's a good one, it doesn't mean that it's a good one. I'm going to email this to Jonathan so he can send this to everybody if you don't get to write this fast enough. But first one is you want to find out how many people attend. You can ask the promoter to give you a rough estimate. Remember, the promoters are salespeople, so they're going to try to sell you the booth. You can also check on Facebook. You can check with your other vendor friends. you want to ask, these are questions to ask the promoter. What type of people attend? How many return vendors do you have from the previous year? Because if can you hear me?
Yeah, you're good.
Okay, cool. Because if there's nobody returning, that's because they're turning and burning vendors every year, which means it's not a good show. I've gone to multiple shows where they're like, oh, you talk to vendors and they're like, yeah, this is the first time we're here. And you talk to every vendor and they're like, oh yeah, this is the first time we're here. We're like, how? The show's been going on for 10 years. That's not good, right? Because no one's sticking around and they're just constantly finding new people. How long has the event been going on for? Now, I was just doing every event that I could, and then I quickly realized that for me personally, I won't be doing an event anymore that's a first time, just because typically it's a new promoter and they typically don't know what they're doing and how to get the word out, and they're not going to market it as much. So is this a ticketed event? Like, does it cost to go into the event? If it does, you also have people that are paying to be somewhere, which is normally $10 to $15 to get in. It's a parking cost versus if you have a free event, you're going to have a tougher time selling. We still do some free events, but I mean, the people aren't as quality because they're just going with their family for the free stuff, right? They're not trying to spend any money. Here are some questions to ask the promoter. What type of marketing are you doing? So I'll actually call a promoter and say, hey, I just had a question about your event. I was wondering, what are you doing to get the marketing out there? And they usually say, oh, we're doing Facebook ads. We have banners around the city. We're working with the committees. We're part of this. We're part of that. And, it'll make you feel good about the event. Check if they have a Facebook page, because you can actually see how many people like or are confirmed attendees. Now, not obviously if there's 2,000 likes, not everyone's going to be attending. Maybe cut that just to be safe in half or even a third, and you can guarantee that many people will be at the event. So if there's an event and there's only 100 people going, chances are 30 people are going, and it's going to be a really tough time. Another thing is look on how many exhibitors are attending, because as we know, exhibitors are some of our best customers. So the more exhibitors there are, the more likely you're going to make bigger sales, because if everyone's doing well, you're going to do well too. I love asking the question, what's the longest you've ever had a vendor in your show, right? They've had somebody going for 10 years. It's probably a good event. How many exhibitors do you have returning? And then just so I'm not really kind of, I guess, intruding or feeling like I'm trying to almost disrespect their event, I ask, hey, just so I know about your event, how to staff it, how many people are you expecting to attend? Because we normally have 1 to 3 people at the booth. Oh, okay, cool. You have 10,000. Oh, I'm definitely gonna need 2 or 3. Awesome. I always ask about the show hours. So sometimes we've gone to events where it only goes from 5 p.m. to 10 p.m. and it's not really a great time to sell. What type of atmosphere is it? Is it a buying atmosphere? Is it just like a party atmosphere? How many paying customers did you have this last year? Because if they're collecting ticket sales, they know how much revenue they brought, and there's somebody in some department that has that information. Another thing is, where are the vendors located? Could I see a map? If they don't have a map, that's just another thing that shows you they're not as organized as they need to be. Right? Because you can't really see if there's a high traffic area. And the last thing is, did you do research on the promoter themselves? Do they have a track record of putting good events on? We'll use the home show, Show Technologies. They put on major events all throughout the country, and every time they do it, it's an awesome event. And there's other promoters that just they're not good at their job. It's simply what it is. The show is only as good as the promoter and their team. And if you're really unsure what type of people attend, you can always ask about demographics, whether it's old people or just super young people or people literally just there to get drunk, right? Because if you're trying to go to a place where there's only 21 to 25-year-olds and you're going to try to sell, it's going to be a tough event for you. But yeah, that's kind of what I got on the events. And I'm just going to take some questions now. If you guys have any questions on how to look up an event, how to, qualify the event a little deeper or anything like that.
So
Sure.
one of the last points you said was research the promoter. What points do you look for when you research the promoter?
So if you research a promoter, you can see what other events they have.
Okay.
Right. And this is where you're going to really benefit from building a network with other vendors. So like I'll literally talk to other vendors like at a slow show, and I'll network with like the guys that do the insoles or the even like the kitchen craft or anything like that. And I'll just be like, hey, is it cool if we get a phone call? And I can kind of share the events that I have going on and maybe the events that you have. And I probably do about 3 phone calls like that a year, and we literally just kind of match shows. And it's probably been one of the best things that I've ever done. And I'll ask them, hey, do you have anything in San Antonio? Do you have anything in this area? And they'll just share with me, and I'll share with what I have with them too. But really just checking their other events and then going back to Facebook and seeing what other people have to say about that. Also, like festivals.net, if it's on there, it typically has a review section on the event itself, like whether it's a 1-star or 5-star. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Cool. You guys have any other questions at all?
Joseph, I have one for you about
Sure.
What's your minimum attendance number for you to say, hey, that's probably an event that Cutco should be at, that we should be working?
It depends. Like in the fall, I don't want to be at anything under like 2,000 people, just because we're going to get like 1% of the sales typically. But if I'm at a market days and there's only 50 vendors, maybe like about 1,000. But again, you got to be selective on kind of like your standards and your schedule. So in the summer, I'm more likely to try out an event if it has at least 500 to 1,000 people. In the fall, I will not do an event that has 500 to 1,000 people, because chances are there's another event out there that has anywhere from like 1,000 to like 10,000 people. Because if you're doing like a little county fair, I mean, chances are there should be at least 500 people attending a day. So that's about 2,000 people that are going to be at that event. So it just depends on how busy your schedule is. But remember, like, the better you get it at the job, you only really need 3 to 5 sales to make a show worth it.
Joseph, can you say that one time louder for the people in the back?
The better your skill level is, it doesn't truly matter, because you really only need 3 to 5 sales a day to make it worth it. Because if you have a $400 average, I mean, you're going to sell $2,000 at it. And if the show costs 25 or 50 bucks, I mean, you just made right around 950 bucks, right? Plus you got service leads and everything else with it. But what I would encourage y'all to do, like today, is research some of these events while you guys are all together, and then come up with an extra 3 events, something small, whether it's the summer or the fall, and like just make sure that you're already securing CPO for the future, versus I always say it's just like people kind of waiting to get a shift. And that's the only way that you're going to take your business really to like a really high level. Because in the Cutco business, literally, like, it's based on your skill level, your event schedule, and your marketing. So you have to work on those 3 pillars. So if your event schedule is weak, you need to work on it. If your skill level is weak, you need to work on it. If your marketing is weak, you need to work on it. But those are the three things that are going to help you have a 200K year very easy.
Hey, Joseph, real quick, do you, based on researching promoters, is that obviously talking to the vendors? Can you dive a little bit? Is it more like Facebook? Is that how you mainly research promoters, like promoters?
So you can look at any of the, like, usually if you go to their website, they're trying to promote some of their other events, right? So like, let's say that I'll use I guess I'll go back to like there's a Bernie Market Days out here, right? Bernie Market Days also puts on Uvalde Market Days. They also put on Georgetown Market Days. They also put on other events. So what I'll typically do is, well, one, I'll call the promoter and I'll just like drill them with all these questions and see if they can give me like the actual answers. If they can't, then that's kind of like a red flag. The second thing is I'll go on Facebook and see how many Facebook likes their page has. And if it has under 100, that's basically just they're asking their Facebook friends to like it versus just natural organic likes. The third thing is talking to other vendors. And like while you're at the shows, you need to really be making connections with other vendors and just ask them if they're doing good at those events. And you need to find something that's like a hot item, and also something it doesn't always have to be the same price point, but something like higher quality. Because if you're networking with a bunch of vendors that sell a bunch of low quality items, your demographic is completely different from theirs. Another one, Frank, for like the business gift stuff, like we're working on this one event, and I found out that this guy also runs 20 other events, and I've been researching the other events to make sure that they all kind of like pair up. And if they have multiple events, it's because they're doing something right. If they have one event, it's because they're starting out. So it's just like anything. They need to have some type of track record. Because we did a bunch of taco truck fest this last summer, and it was a bad call on my part because it was their first year event, and it was the first time they ever did anything. And that was not a good call on my part. So I just made it like a point to not work with first year promoters.
Cool. Any other questions for Joseph? Cool. Joseph, hey, thank you for making the time this morning. Thank you for being here and speaking to all of us. I literally got 2 pages of notes on that one as well. So excited
Cool.
to implement it, and hopefully for our team. I think I was telling someone earlier, I think we in the month of March this year at the rodeo, I'm pretty sure we doubled our entire production for the entire summer campaign of last year in 1 month. So definitely an opportunity for us, and something that we can continue to move forward and grow with as well. So thank you for giving us a framework in the background to be able to do that.
Yeah, no problem. I'll send you an email, Jonathan, and you can send out the questions to everybody to want.
Yeah, that'd be perfect. Thank you. Right?
Okay. Yeah, no problem. You guys enjoy Seabrook.
We'll do. Thanks, man.